Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming and visiting us with tonight. Our speaker is Eleanor Hucker, and she is a specialist because she and her husband own a company called Great Lakes Staple Seeds. And I let her tell you a little bit more about that, but they tend to sell crops like grains and beans and things that can be stored and used as staple foods over the season. Um, Hold on. I gotta let some. And so she will let us know about some of the things that we might not be so familiar with. So anyway, this is Eleanor Hucker, and
Hello.
welcome, Eleanor.
Hello.
Hello.
Greetings from Ortonville.
Yeah, up north.
Well, Scott likes to say we're in the mountains.
Yeah.
So,
So Eleanor, let us know a little bit about your background and about what you grow at your farm in Ortonville.
Yep, let me share my screen.
Okay.
There we go. That work?
Yep. There you are.
Okay. So essentially, this is the agenda for the evening. Okay, let's see. How do I? Okay, let's see.
Yep. There you go. I can see it.
So a couple housekeeping things. I tend to talk fast when I get nervous, but don't worry, it's being recorded. The slides will be available after the presentation. I've got links for the recipes and references in the appendix. And it's not meant to be, an in-depth thing. It's just more like an inspirational introduction to each of the species. And if you have any questions, please ask them in chat, and Pam will help me keep with that. I've got my email address is seeds@greatlakesstapleseeds.com. I'm also Southeast Michigan Seed Savers on Facebook. So moving on. This is the beginning. In 1994, when we moved up to Michigan, we decided we wanted a garden. So in 95, I put in beans, and it's just, the patterns and the flavors and the colors quickly addicting. Okay, so about me, I'm a longtime grower and motivated by the desire to enable and enrich our family's homegrown food security. I'm a absolute legume addict. I'm actually probably a seed addict. I figure I collected purses or shoes. If I collect seeds, at least I can eat them. So an avid seed steward, love seed stories, connections with seeds. One of my favorite ones is family. My son actually met our daughter-in-law at an Ann Arbor seed swap several years ago. And actually, my daughter-in-law is the daughter of Karen Golden from Michigan Heirlooms. So between the Goldens and the Huckers, we have Southeast Michigan covered with seeds and transplants. And another really exciting story for me is of Johnny Doolin blue dent corn. And in the winter when it's nasty out and you're going through seed catalogs and stuff like that, I came across this corn, and it said it was from Indiana. And so I did a little bit of digging around. It turns out it is from the same county, Fountain County, that my family's from. So, I did some more digging around, and I reached out to the guy that was stewarding it, and he lives about an hour south of where Scott's parents are from. and his brother knows my aunt. And, it's really exciting to me that even though we're so far apart and, have never met, we're connected by this corn because, Fountain County, Indiana, they're down there and my family's down there. And I just think that seeds have a powerful connection, powerful way to bring people together. And so my love for growing seeds grew into the Great Lakes Staple Seeds Company. And we've got, everything that we sell is grown on our Southeast Michigan homestead. And we focus on staple crops like Pam suggested. So that means like dry beans, winter squashes, grains, different crops that are nutritionally important and calorie dense and stuff that you'd kind of want in your pantry if something like COVID came around. So let's see. Okay, so fabulous Fabaceae. And when I use the word Fabaceae, it's the scientific word for the bean family. So that includes beans and peas and lima beans and so much more. And they include the legumes, which are the crops that have pods. And the pulses are actually legumes that are typically used dry. So like chickpeas and lentils would be considered dry. And our Fabaceae are fabulous also because they're very beginner friendly. They're very easy to grow. They thrive with neglect. They're easy to save true to type seeds from, so you can create your own seed stock. There is a wide selection of different types of bean family members to choose from. They're very good for us nutritionally. They're great sources of protein and minerals and vitamins. They're great for the garden because a lot of them have little nodules on their roots that fix nitrogen. So they're actually enhancing the soil and the garden around them. And they're fun because, one of my favorite places in the garden, are the little lentil flowers or the chickpea flowers and just lots of different neat little plants. Again, they're very diverse. There's everything from the adzuki bean to the winged bean, and we'll introduce you to these guys momentarily. So why grow so many? The key for me is biodiversity. And if anything, these last couple seasons have been very unpredictable weather-wise. So, we've had wet June, we've had dry July, we've had, cold and hot, and just, Mother Nature's becoming increasingly unpredictable. So if we have a garden that has a diversity of species growing in it, maybe one year your snow peas don't do well, but your cowpea will do well. So you kind of are able to hedge your bets and against Mother Nature's unpredictable whims. Another reason for having the biodiversity is love to eat, love to grow to eat. So chickpeas make an excellent little down here. The farinata, it's a chickpea cake. It's amazing. You can make crepes from lentils. You can make mung bean pancakes. So with the different types of crops, that just greatly enhances what you can do with them in the kitchen. And so that's a lot of fun. So I talked a little bit about, how they're beginner friendly because you can save true to type seeds. And when I use the word true to type, I mean, if you plant the asparagus pea seed, you'll get an asparagus pea plant. And this is because with the legumes, the flowers are perfect. So you've got both male and female parts, which means that they're self-pollinating. And when you're planning your garden and making your choices, the species is the key. So I've got here, and using the example of rice pea, cowpea. So you got Vigna, that's the genus. Unguiculata is the species, and rice pea is the variety. So if you have the different species, you don't have to worry about cross-pollination. You can put your Potawatomi rabbit bean next to your Cali black bean, and you won't have to worry about them cross-pollinating, because cross-pollination happens within the species, not between species. And in addition to being a seed geek, I am a word geek. So I've got a little bit of botanical trivia, cleistogamy. And essentially that means that by the time the flower is opened, it's already pollinated. So that helps also keep seeds true to type. And so if you want to do, I have trouble picking out just one lima bean or just one pea or one chickpea. Distance helps keep them true. So depending upon the species, there's different isolation distances, and Seed Savers Exchange has a really good reference section for isolation distances. Let's see. So for the legume seed harvest, legumes are you can go ahead and eat some pods, but make sure you save some pods to have the seeds to plant for next year. So the seeds you can see in my background picture. My background picture is some cowpea, and you can see toward the front some of the cowpea seeds, the pods are turning brown. So I allow the pods to mature on the plant. But if I know that we've got rain coming, you can pick the mature pods and keep them in a separate layer, or you can pull the whole plants if majority of the pods are ready and hang them in a well-ventilated location. And then once the pods are dry, my husband's an engineer, so he cringes, but I like to hand shell my pods. I just find it very therapeutic, and I love, it's kind of like a little surprise every time I open the pods. But you can also, put a bunch in the pillowcase and smack them around. Some people like putting them on a tarp and kind of tarp dancing on them. And then once you have them for storage, so it's important that you make sure that they're really, really dry before you put them away. And when you first harvest them, if you put them in your hand and you kind of shake them, they'll make a thud when they're fresh. But if you thud them, and then a couple days later you try again, and a couple days later try, and as it goes, it turns from a thud to a clink. And make sure you label them, because even though you think, oh, I'll remember what that is, no, label it, and if you can, label it in more than one place. And then store them in cool, dry location. With beans and stuff, you can get at least 5 years of shelf stability if you store them in a cool, dry location. But in reality, in my mind, the best way to store seeds is to grow them every year, because as you grow them, the seeds are picking up the memory of what the mother plants experienced. So every year you grow them, maybe you've had a really hot season, so it'll have the genes that will be able to handle heat better. So every year they're adapting to what Mother Nature gives them. And when I've got several lines that are over 5 years old, and they're some of my most reliable producers, because, every year they get a little bit stronger. And in the reference section, I've got a link to a micro seed bank primer, and it's really meant for like a seed library audience, but it has some really good information on humidity and different things. So it's also good for just the regular grower. A little bit about my gardens. I'm in Southeast Michigan, Ortonville. We have about 145 frost-free days. The last frost typically is the end of May, but knock on wood, we haven't had frost for a while. Usually our first frost is mid-October, but a couple years ago we had frost in September, mid-September, and then it was beautiful for like weeks after, but unfortunately it kind of affected some of the crops because I wasn't ready for a frost. Most of our soil is loamy clay, and most of what we talk about are grown like dry beans. So I direct seed, and this little guy up here, it's just a standard cooking thermometer, but a couple of years ago, I switched to using this method where I test the soil, and I get a lot better germination when I wait until it's consistently above 70 degrees. But sometimes it's very hard to wait because everybody else is saying, plant, 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 and it's like, well, I'm not ready yet because the soil is telling me it's not cold enough. It's not warm enough. And then another thing, people are like, well, this is appropriate for zone 5, or, oh no, this is really zone 9. Well, actually the zones, it's not as important, because if it was, there are a lot of crops I would have never tried because supposedly they're outside of my zone. And I've got in the appendix a reference about growing degree days. And that's actually a better predictor of how a crop will do, because it's the amount of heat units the crop experiences over a season. So if you're interested in growing degree days, in the appendix, I've got a good link for that. And then, so questions so far? Do we have any questions, Pam?
Doesn't appear to be any questions, but I did want to refer back to something we were talking about before the program started. You mentioned that I just wanted people to know that we want to promote your company, but you are done for the season, correct?
Yeah, currently I am closed for the season because we've got, it's essentially just me, and then half-time Scott. He's got a full-time off-farm job. So it's time where we're, if I don't get stuff planted, I'm not gonna have a crop in the fall.
So when's the best time to order for you?
We will open for fall planted grains in August, and then the remaining inventory usually is available end of December, with shipping usually in first part of February.
Okay. But I think so far no questions in the chat, so
okay.
We'll keep going.
Okay, so introducing. So these are the ones that I'm going to give you an introduction to, and each one of these is a distinct species. So you can put your asparagus pea next to your peanuts, next to your cowpea, next to your favas, and you can, if you're only growing one of each, you can collect seeds that you can then plant next year, and you will get asparagus peas and chickpeas and pigeon peas. So the first one are adzuki beans. I'm doing this alphabetically, and they are the little red beans, and you can make they're typically bean paste in buns, or on this is a cowpea fritter. And you can also sprout them, or you can use them whole with rice or other grains. They're short little plants, so you can put them close together, and they are nice in that they will, like, kind of like the cowpea. The pods are above the foliage. They are hypogeal germination, and I've got a picture of that with lentils. But essentially, when you plant a regular bean and it pops up, it's got those two chubby little leaves, the cotyledon leaves, with something. So that's an epigeal germination, where the cotyledon leaves come out. The hypogeal germination, the cotyledon leaves stay underground. So that means you can plant them a little earlier because they are protected from frost and protected from bugs and things. In the lentil picture, the lentil slide, I've got a better picture of that. Our next one is asparagus peas. And this one is one of my favorites. When we lived in China for some years, because my husband works for General Motors, but we went down to southern China one holiday and were exposed to asparagus peas. And I like them because they are a gorgeous little plant with beautiful flowers. And if you live in a homeowners association that doesn't allow gardens, you can guerrilla garden, because their flowers just happen to make little edible pods. And so it's an interesting plant because it sends up a central stem and then it grows laterally. And you can steam the pods. They're great sauteed. You can eat them like edamame. You can pickle them. You can even eat the dried beans when the little seeds, like you can do with the lentils or chickpeas or things. The next are chickpeas. Chickpeas are one of my favorite plants. They're gorgeous. You've got two different kinds. One, typically, you've got the desi ones that you tend to be smaller and more angular. You've got kabuli that are nice, gorgeous, round ones. They are also hypogeal germination, so you can plant them early. And if you have a lot of things to put in the ground, it's nice to be able to get stuff out of the way first. Even though the foliage looks very lacy and delicate, it is actually quite hardy. It's interesting that the plant gives off the malic acid, so that kind of helps repel other plants, other pests. So if you plant them in between things, it helps keep away the different insects. One thing with a fresh pod, if you squish it, it's got saponin, so that means it's going to just squish. Saponin is nature's soap, so you got to really let the pods dry before they will pop open so you can get the seeds. The one disadvantage that I found with chickpeas is that mice absolutely love them. So you'll come out, you've got your gorgeous pods, you'll come out the next morning and there'll be a pile of empty pods at the base because the mice have come and had a chickpea party. That's one thing. You can fence for deer, you can fence for rabbits, but trying to protect against mice is a little bit of a challenge. Again, chickpeas are really diverse and tasty in the kitchen. So you can roast them whole with a little bit of salt for a crunchy snack. They make a really awesome lemony cake. You'd never know it was chickpeas. And then also earlier, I talked about farinata, which is a really rich chickpea cake. And then this one is a new one for me, a couple of years. It's Bambara. So it's a land race. So you'll get all sorts of different seed coat patterns. And here's actually a pod that hasn't been shelled yet. But you can see from its name, the subterranean, that like peanuts, it will peg and make the pods underground. So here's a little plant, and then as it gets bigger, it makes these little parts that the flowers come out on, and then the flowers will make a peg, and you'll get a pod that has the seed. Typically, it's 1 or 2 seeds per pod. And an interesting thing about Bambara, it's a West African crop, so we don't know too much about it here, but it's actually considered a complete food, even better than peanuts, because it's got a better balance of essential amino acids. It's high in protein, it's got a good carbohydrate, and it's got good fat. So it really is a good plant for us. And like other legumes, it is good for your garden because it will fix nitrogen. And then, so you can roast or boil the seeds after they've been shelled, either dry or fresh right away. That's typically ground for a flour, made dumplings, or cornmeal, not cornmeal, Bambara meal cakes. And also it's got, you can kind of like soy milk, you can make Bambara milk. And I've got in the appendix, I've got some links for learning more about Bambara, because it's a relatively unknown crop to us, but it can be grown in Michigan. And again, it's a case of where, oh yeah, it says it's good for zone 9. Well, no, actually we can grow it here as well. And then we've got the Chichurkia. There is an organization called the Slow Food Arc of Taste that focuses on crops that are culturally significant to different areas. So this is a crop that's aboard Slow Food's Arc of Taste. And it was once very common in Italy. And there's even, a festival for the legume in Italy at a commune. It's considered an insurance crop because it's nutritionally, good for us, but it thrives in very poor conditions. So whenever, if it's a famine relief crop. It's very wispy. So I use a tomato cage to help support the tendrils. And it's a very hearty staple. It makes excellent soup. It's kind of a cross between a lentil and a garbanzo bean. One thing though, you'll hear that, oh no, you shouldn't grow it because it's toxic. Well, yes, if it's your main source of protein every day, a lot every day for multiple days on end, then you might be at risk of developing the latherism, which is essentially your butt muscles atrophy. But if you just eat it every once in a while, it's not a problem. And in the appendix, I've got a link about latherism and how to prepare it safely. And, if it was totally, oh no, you shouldn't eat it, well, it wouldn't be barred Slow Food Arc of Taste because people wouldn't be enjoying it. So this is one that is one to try. And it's another one that would be good for guerrilla gardening because people would see the pretty flowers and the wispy plant instead of, oh my gosh, that's a vegetable. And one of my favorite species are the cowpeas. So you've got the Vigna unguiculata, You also have the sesquipedales, so the yard-long beans. I was first introduced to cowpeas in the early 90s. I worked in Purdue's horticulture department, and we had a grant from NASA to explore controlled ecological life support systems, and cowpea was one of the crops considered, one of the 3 crops considered for sustaining, manned missions to Mars and things. You've got bush cowpea, you've got climbing cowpea. So I've got, this would be bush, and I think this one might be a climbing cowpea. You can eat, they produce the peas, the dry peas. You can also eat the pods as regular beans. They're very heat tolerant and drought tolerant. And one neat thing about them is they've got the extrafloral nectaries, these little glands on the plant that are outside the flowers. So they are Mother Nature's way of attracting things like the ants, which will then keep away the predatory insects. So it's kind of, loofah gourds also have extrafloral nectaries, but it's just really neat. I mean, people might panic because, oh no, my cowpeas have all these ants. Well, they're supposed to, because it's helping to keep away the predatory bugs. And they're very versatile. You can eat the pods as beans. You can make akara, the fritters. You can make Hoppin' John. It's one of my favorite. I haven't had any failures with the cowpea so far. It's very dependable, reliable, and one of my favorite ones to eat. And then so you got your fava beans, and this has been around for pre 6000 BC, and typically we think of them as Mediterranean, but they're also grown in northern climates like Russia. Russia's got a proverb: they're not mushrooms, they don't grow if they're not sowed. So this is actually black Russian fava, one of the ones that grows. You can grow it as high as above the Arctic Circle. They do like the cooler temperatures, so you can plant them early with peas, or you can fall plant them and they'll overwinter. One thing, they are aphid magnets, and some people again kind of panic. Oh no, they're covered with aphids, but they will actually attract the ladybugs and parasitic wasps. So Mother Nature's got a system to keep the aphids in check. And they form, a spike, and they will flower from the bottom up. And I find that sometimes if I grow a mixed variety, that some of the taller ones will need caging to help keep the spikes from falling over. So I've got gram and mung beans. So they are 2 separate species, but because it says mungo, people think, that's mungo. They kind of use mung bean or gram to mean the same thing, but they're actually a bit different. So you've got your green ones that are the mung beans. Those are the Vigna radiata, and you can plant them next to your gram, your black gram beans, your Vigna mungo, and they are very popular in India, and they're part of India's culture. They are suitable for close spacing because they've got the small plants. You can put them up close. They have their pods up high also. They've got cute little flowers that open in the morning. They're very diverse in terms of using. They're the ones that you typically find bean sprouted. They're typically a mung bean or a gram. You can make the noodles with them. They're suitable for spicy, or they're suitable for sweet. So the hyacinth beans, typically you'll see climbing hyacinth beans that are pink or red flowered, and those are great for hummingbirds and things. But the ones that I grow are white seeded, and they're bush variety. So like with the Chichurchia, the lab will need several changes of water if you use the seeds. But again, it's one that the seeds are eaten, the pods are eaten in most of the world, except for the US. We don't really think of them as a food source. We think of them more as the hummingbird attractors. And so they do have the inhibitors, but even red kidney beans are toxic if you don't prepare them right. So, don't be afraid that, oh, you've got to do a couple of steps to get them edible. They're just another good, nutritious plant that will help increase your biodiversity. And it's good because the whole plant is edible. And lentils. So here is the picture that shows the hypogeel germination. So down here, the cotyledons, and then you've got a couple of nodes, and then we've got the upper ones. And so this helps keep the plant safe from frost, because even if these get eaten by bugs, or if they get frosted, you still have these nodes below that will keep the plant active and viable. Lentils, they've typically got the 5 different kinds of the culinary ones. You've got your black, so like this would be considered a black one. You've got your French green ones, which kind of look like little globes. You've got regular green ones, you've got red ones, you've got Spanish ones. The split lentils are what's known as dal. The one thing with lentils, they grow slow at the beginning, so they really need to be in a weed-free bed until they get big. And since they're so small, you can really space them close together. And the lentils themselves, once they're harvested, they're one of the quickest legume to cook, because you don't need to soak them. And yeah, so the nodes, they're protected against the birds and insects. So peanuts. So no, you're not supposed to be able to grow peanuts in the north. Well, yes, you can. There are a couple of different types of peanuts. Typically, we find the Valencia type to be the best that's success in the north. And we really have George Washington Carver with, I'm his therapy human. George Washington Carver is hold on, our neighbor's coming too. Hey, Scott, Jeff's coming. Sorry about that. So George Washington Carver is the one that really popularized peanuts. And we have, peanuts are ubiquitous, and we really have the work of George Washington Carver to thank for that. So peanuts, they've got the taproot, and they've got their little stems, and they'll have their beautiful little flowers that will then put the pegs down. So you go for beautiful green lush and the little flowers to the pods. We direct seed typically when the soil is consistently above 65 degrees, and we don't put them with fertilizer, because if you have too much nitrogen, it will promote the leaf growth instead of pod growth, because we have to remember that they are making their own nitrogen with the nodules. I don't think you can see nodules, but when you harvest the plants, you'll see that the roots will have the little bumps that have the nitrogen fixing bacteria. And then typically we harvest our peanuts mid-October-ish when the leaves are starting to turn yellow. We lift the plants with a potato fork and then we hang them in the barn to dry. We've got a friend down in northern Indiana that grows peanuts, and he's got problems with voles coming to eat the seeds. We grow our peanuts in toward the center of our garden in our sandier soil, so we haven't had, knock on wood, vole problems, because I think we've got enough of a boundary between the grass and where the peanuts are. But it's a really neat crop to grow. It's a lot of fun. And then this is another one that I'm excited about, pigeon peas. It's a tropical crop. It's really popular in the Caribbean and Cuba and Puerto Rico. And for the longest time, it's like, I really want northern adapted pigeon peas to add to my biodiversity for my northern gardens. And finally, there is northern adapted pigeon peas. So again, they're one that Slow Food Arc of Taste says that it is a culturally significant enough crop that they want to really encourage and promote its growth. They get to be pretty bushy shrubs, and they've got the little typical yellow legume type flowers, and then they'll make the little pretty pods, and you can eat the seeds fresh, or you can let them dry and then rehydrate them. They're a staple in African and Latin and Caribbean cuisine. They're really good with rice and coconut. They're also gungo peas or the gandol bean. We had Detroit, Keep Growing Detroit, had a farm to table dinner in the fall, and they featured the gandol bean with rice, and it's amazing. It's another fun crop to enhance your culinary abilities and your biodiversity. And then tepberry bean, again, it's a crop that's associated with the Southwest. You shouldn't be able to grow them up here. Well, you can. And it's again on the Slow Food Arc of Taste. It's really good nutritionally for blood sugar management. So diabetes, if you're trying to manage your diabetes through food, it's an excellent crop. High cholesterol, again, it helps with that. They are little bushy, short, twiny plants. The one thing with the tepberry beans is that the pods are kind of close to the ground. So you want to make sure that you don't overwater them. And you want to watch as the pods start to turn brown. You want to watch and pick them, not wait, because they will tend to shatter. The seed pods will open up and spring your seeds all over the place. So winged bean, it's related to asparagus pea, except this one, where asparagus pea is a bush, this is a vine. And again, it's one that's really good sauteed. The seeds themselves, if you want to just eat the seeds, they are very nutritious. The roots of these are also edible. I haven't eaten the roots yet because by the time harvest, I forget that, oh, I was supposed to try to eat the pod, the roots. They do have very hard seeds. So to get them to germinate, the hilum, the eye, I usually take a little nail clipper and make a little nick opposite the hilum, and then I soak them, and that will help with germination. If we were in an area that didn't have as cold of a winter, it is a potential perennial crop. Maybe in Michigan, under a high tunnel or in a greenhouse, I'm not sure. It does have the disadvantage. It is a long season crop. So this one is one that I actually will start inside and transplant out as to little seedlings. So those were the ones that are less commonly grown. But, in addition to all those, there are lima beans, and there are just so many. You can get bush limas, you can get the climbing limas. There's ones that have stories. I've got one this year that I found that is related to John Edgerton of Harvest of Joy over on the west side of the state. And in the early years of Seed Savers Exchange, he offered his mixed Peruvian limas, and they just happened to relist it not too long ago. And I'm looking through the catalog, and it's like, John Edgerton, hey, I know him. So again, it's an example of connections with seeds. Your lima beans are the lunatus, so you can plant them next to your regular beans. You can plant them next to any one of the ones that we talked about. You can plant them next to your multiflora runner beans. So it's the Phaseolus coccineus. You'll hear people talk about runner beans. Runner beans can be the bush, the runner habit, so a climbing one. And those are typically, if it's just a runner habit, those are typically just the regular bean, Phaseolus vulgaris. A true runner bean is, when you plant it, it is the hypogeal germination. So its cotyledons will stay below the surface, and it'll just send up like a little sprout like peas do. So if you've got something called a runner bean and you're not sure if it's vulgaris, the regular bean, or coccineus, just plant it and notice if it's got the cotyledons. If it does, that's just a bush climbing habit, or if it doesn't, then it's a true runner bean. And then soybeans, soybeans get a bad rap because of the field grown soybeans that could be GMO, but there are no GMO soybean varieties available to home growers. And so soybeans, again, they are really tolerant of cold and drought. You can get ones, they're primarily bush, but you can get ones that have the different maturity dates. You can get ones that are suitable for edamame, or they're also called maodou in China. You can get ones that you keep the dry seeds, and you can make your tofu. You can make your soy milk. You can also express them for oil. So one of the things with a sustainable homestead, it's kind of hard to store fats. So oil seeds such as your soybeans, the peanuts would work as an oil seed. Believe it or not, even okra works as an oil seed. So I like them because they are useful spacers. I can put, if I want 6 different types of regular bean, well, I can use my lima bean next to one type of bean and then spread it out with putting a pea next to it. So in the spring planting time, I've got like a little grid of, okay, I've got this next to that, next to this, next to that. So because one of my goals is to try to harvest the true to type seeds. Some crops I don't care if they do cross, because a mix will also help prepare our gardens for unpredictable conditions. But some crops I do want to keep the true to type seeds. Let's see. Okay, so to recap, so legume flowers, they're perfect. They're self-pollinating. If they are the same species, that's when you have to go and look up isolation distances. But for the most part, you can keep something like 20 feet away, and unless you're selling seeds, then you don't have to worry too much about potential cross-pollination. Some crops like lima beans and the runner beans, for some reason, their flowers are more promiscuous, so they require the greater spacing. And so, again, species is the key. So if you have a different species, don't worry about it, plant away. The Fabaceae are fabulous because they are so diverse. I mean, I went through 14 different types of species, not including the regular bean and regular pea. They're very good for us health-wise. They're good for our gardens. They're very versatile. You can eat them fresh. You can eat them the processed, the dry seeds for flour. You can make chips. People grind the dry beans to make flour, make chips. You can make the lentil crepes. They're fun. I think they're cute little flowers and cute little plants. They're very easy to grow. They're very forgiving. They're very easy to save, the true to type seeds. And overall, I think they're worth a spot in your garden. So if you have any questions outside of this, I'm reached at theseeds@greatlakesstapleseeds.com. And again, you can find me if you use Facebook at Southeast Michigan Seed Savers. And just want to show you that I've got different links in the appendix. And so this will be available as the slide, PDF. So you'll have these links. But the Slow Food Arc of Taste, the WHO had a bunch of stuff. There was the International Year of the Pulses. And again, those are the legumes in the dry form. I've got the micro seed bank primer, using growing degree days. Let's see, so the curious case of the grass pea, your stuff about your lathyrism, and also a very good recipe for them in soup. And some other interesting things. And I think that's about it. So I should stop sharing my screen. Do you think?
Yeah,
I can't
go
hear
ahead
you.
if you, I'm sorry. Go
Okay.
ahead and stop sharing if you want, because we do have some questions for you.
Okay. So did I stop?
Yeah, let's start.
Okay.
Says when we come to it says, how does Eleanor keep her crop of chickpeas from being eaten by mice?
Well, I trap them. And so mice, we found that if we have like a box that has a hole in it, the mice are attracted to the dark little corner, and I do trap them because it's extremely frustrating to have a beautiful crop of chickpea, and then the next morning, a lot of them are gone because the mice partied. I do have barn cats and garden cats, but I think the mice may have bribed them.
They don't get up early enough, maybe.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, one thing I have to say about chickpeas is they are one of the most charming looking beans. You know, the
Yeah.
foliage is so
Yes.
pretty that I
Yeah.
just want to go out there and rub my hands through them,
Yeah.
and they kind of hold droplets of water on them, and they're
Right. Right. And so they glisten. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, our
And
next. Oh, go ahead.
no, it's just you think that because it looks so lacy and delicate, but they're actually very hardy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can plant them a little earlier, right? I mean, you don't
Yep.
have to
Yep.
wait
Because
till
they've got the epigeal germination.
Another question was, do you know why peanut allergies are so common? And um, if you're sensitive to peanuts, could you be sensitive to some of these other legumes?
I don't really know why. I think that was always an interesting question because when we did live in Asia, peanuts and peanut oil, it's all over the place, and they don't seem to have allergies like we do in the West. So I'm not sure exactly why. Um, I the only one that might be similar in allergies only because it's makes the pegs under and pods underground would be the bambara, but I'm not sure about that.
Yeah,
That'd be
it's
a
kind of a
really
more of a
good
medical
question.
thing, you know.
Yeah, that'd be a really good question for a nutritionalist. But my guess is that you wouldn't have the issues because they're separate species.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not a doctor and I don't even play one on TV.
So, we have a question about Mayakoba beans, and have you ever succeeded in growing those in our climate?
Well, I haven't. They are. If do they mean the Mayakoba ones that are the vulgaris?
Well, yeah,
Beans?
you can see them you find them in the
Yes.
stores, but I've always heard that they are
Well,
too long of a season to grow
well,
here.
no, actually, there is a fourth generation bean farmer up kind of in this part of the thumb area, Sheridan Acres. Kevin has Mayakoba beans.
Mm-hmm.
I just ordered some for gifts. And so he is a fourth generation bean farmer that's got the Mayakoba beans. He's got Flora de Mayo, Flora de Junio. So, and he's kind of, he wants to be like the Rio Gordo or Rancho Gordo
Right.
out in California. So
Rancho
he,
Gordo of the North.
yes, yeah, yes, he wants, and so, he started with just a couple of varieties and is really starting to add some really fun ones. Because the Mayakoba, the Flora de Mayo, the Flora de Juno, they've been on my list to try for a while too. So I bought some to eat, but I'm going to see if I can get them to grow for me. But if they can grow for him, I suspect they will grow for me too.
Yeah. So I don't see any other questions. I might have one or two.
Okay.
Let's see. I was writing things down. Oh,
Okay.
you mentioned the winged beans had edible tubers. Have you ever tried that? Eaten the
No,
tubers?
because we get so busy in the fall, and invariably we're scurrying, and by the time I remember, oh, they're edible, that it's too late.
Yeah, well, that happens.
Yeah, yeah. And the same with runner beans. People say that they've got edible tubers also. And
Mhm.
again, it's just I don't have enough time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe somebody who doesn't grow such a huge diverse garden as you might give it a try back
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
report back to
Actually,
us.
yeah. Well, actually, I'm thinking of trying some in a pot this year. So bringing it in so that way I will remember.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, the person who asked the question about the Mayakobas said she got hers from a chef in Arizona. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
But
Well,
are you
yeah.
going to try growing them, Kate? I didn't. Yes, she's going to try. So that'll be
Okay.
interesting.
Yep,
Let us know.
Well, yeah, and if they don't work, try Kevin's from Sheridan Acres.
Okay, Sharon and Acres.
Yeah.
All right.
So one thing I do on Great Lakes Staple Seeds, I do have a community page that has a link to like Sheridan Acres and other seed companies that are focused on the Great Lakes area. So just because I'm closed, there are other small seed companies in the area that you might find some of these things with.
Well, if there's no more, we have a comment that it was an excellent presentation, and thanking you for that.
Thank you.
I if not seeing no more questions, I guess we can kind of move toward concluding. I will say
Okay.
that we will, in the next day or two, it might be a couple of days because our
Yeah.
computer tech is on vacation for until Wednesday. So we'll put we'll send you an email with a link to the recording and the slides that Eleanor has promised.
Yep.
And so, and the links to all of those, that was a great appendix page. So I'm looking forward to clicking on a few of those and
Yeah.
reading.
Well, I figured it was easier to have the appendix than have people trying to write things down.
Right, exactly. Or some people take pictures of but yeah,
Yes.
we will definitely send that information to you in the next couple of days so that you will have that on your inbox. So, well, thank you very much, Eleanor. It's been a real treat talking with you. I'm looking forward to my cowpeas too. I like the fast lady cowpeas.
Yes,
and,
yes.
because you can even get those in late. You don't have to panic because they will. Even if you wait till like the middle of June, they'll still come in under the wire. So.
And Fast Lady is a neat example also because it's an open source seed initiative seed variety. So open source, the OSSI, Open Source Seed Initiative, is a group of breeders and growers that are trying to combat against big ag. So everything that is an open source seed initiative pledged variety, you're free to use if you want to breed with it or however, but so it's an organization that we try to support by having different varieties of OSSI plants in. Yeah,
and I just also wanted to mention our seed library here at the Lyon Township Library, and I haven't looked in the last couple of days, but we did have some seeds for a few of these things, like the Fast Lady cowpeas.
Nice.
And I'll double check and try to, if they're gone, I'll refill them because I have a nice little bag of them at home because I love eating them.
Yes.
Dry or fresh.
Yep. Well, I mean, love to eat, love to grow to eat.
Absolutely. So we had somebody that just joined us. So I do want to say this to him or her, is that we will be sending everyone who registered for this program will get a link to this program that was recorded, and you will get in your inbox in a couple of days, you will get her slides with all of her sources and her resources. So don't panic if you came in late, because you can see the whole program in its entirety.
Yep. And you can always send me an email too if you have any questions or comments.
And that's
Great Lakes
Stapleseeds.com.
Yep.
And if you start typing it, it usually pops up in your Google. So okay. Thank you, Eleanor. It's been a real treat, and I think we'll probably see you back on some other subjects soon. So.
No problem. Let me know.
All righty. Thank you so much.
Happy growing.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.